There are places on this planet that were never meant to be mapped. Places so deep, so ancient, that time itself seems to lose all direction within their dark embrace. This is the story of what happens when our endless curiosity leads us to far beneath the surface, into a realm that was meant to be forgotten. It is a story of an expedition that went looking for answers and found a truth far more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. Our story begins with an expedition of 5 highly experienced, a group of 5 super skilled researchers set out on an exciting adventure. These were not amateur adventurers. They were professionals, each one trained to survive in extreme underground environments where light, sound, and even reason itself can start to behave differently. They were the best of the best, equipped with the latest technology and a shared determination to chart the unknown. The cave system they were about to enter was a complete mystery. It didn't appear on any modern map, no matter how detailed. High-resolution satellite scans showed only a dark, jagged fracture in the earth, almost as if the ground itself had made a conscious effort to seal it shut, to hide what lay beneath. This anomaly, this scar on the planet, was an irresistible call to them. It promised a world untouched, a final frontier right under our feet. At first, the descent felt ordinary. It was what they had trained for. They navigated narrow, winding tunnels, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and ancient stone. The only sounds were the steady drip of water echoing through the passages and the crunch of their boots on the cavern floor. They were surrounded by stone that had likely never been touched by human hands. It was an exhilarating feeling, a sense of pure discovery. But as they pressed deeper, moving further from the world of sunlight and sky, their sophisticated equipment began to fail. It wasn't a sudden breakdown. It was subtle, almost insidious. Compasses, which should have been locked onto magnetic north, started to spin lazily, without any direction. Their high-frequency radios, their lifeline to the surface, began to emit a low, persistent static. And within that static, some of the team members swore they could hear something else. A rhythmic pulse that almost resembled slow, deep breathing. Hours bled into what felt like days. Their internal clocks, their own bodies, were the only reliable timekeepers they had left. The narrow tunnels they had been following started to change. They opened up into vast, breathtaking chambers, so large that the beams from their headlamps couldn't even reach the far walls. The ceilings were held up by impossible stone pillars, structures that defied both geology and engineering. And carved into these pillars were symbols, intricate, alien symbols that didn't belong to any known culture, ancient or modern. It was as if they had stumbled into a cathedral built by another world. As they explored these colossal spaces, they found more. The walls, smooth as polished glass in some places, were covered in murals, faded paintings depicting tall, eerily distorted figures surrounding smaller, kneeling humans. The faces of the human figures had been deliberately erased by time or by hand, leaving behind haunting, blank ovals. A chilling realization began to dawn on them. They were not the first to enter this place. Far from it, strewn across the floors of these massive caverns, were the remnants of a lost world. They found broken tools, their designs unfamiliar and strange. They found fossilized bones, some human, some not. They found the ruins of what looked like shelters, primitive but effective. A civilization had once lived here, thriving far beneath the surface, completely isolated from the sun and the world above. Their architecture was incredibly precise, deliberate, and most unsettlingly, it seemed offensive, but it wasn't built to keep intruders out. The layouts, the fortifications, the strategic placement of walls, it all suggested they were built to keep something contained, to keep something in. The deeper the team ventured, the stronger the unsettling sensation of being watched became. It was a tangible pressure, a feeling on the back of the neck that made every hair stand on end. Shadows in the corners of their vision seemed to move independently of their light sources, stretching and twisting in ways that defied physics. The echoes in the vast chambers became distorted. They started hearing footsteps where no one was walking. The sounds were faint, but distinct. The scuff of a boot on stone, just behind them, always just out of sight. Then came the whispers. One member of the team, a geologist named Harris, stopped dead in a newly discovered tunnel. He swore he heard his name whispered from the darkness ahead, a soft, intimate sound that seemed to come from a passage that hadn't even existed just moments earlier. The team was starting to fray, the psychological strain mounting with every step deeper into the earth. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they discovered a central chamber unlike anything they had seen before. It was the heart of the complex, the nexus of this subterranean world, and at its core stood a massive, monolithic stone structure, like a sarcophagus built for a giant. But it was cracked open. A huge fissure ran down its side, as if something immense had broken out from the inside. The floor around this structure was coated in a strange, black residue. It wasn't soot or dust. It was something that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it, creating a patch of absolute, impenetrable darkness in the center of the room. The air itself vibrated with a low, subaudible frequency, a hum that resonated deep in their chests and made breathing difficult, painful. And that was when they finally understood the horrifying truth. The civilization that built this place hadn't vanished. They hadn't died out or moved on. They had sacrificed themselves. The murals, the defensive walls, the sealed-off passages, it was all part of a desperate, final act. The entity they had worshipped, or more likely, feared, was not dead. It was merely sleeping. It was patient, a presence born of absolute darkness, sustained by silence, and feeding on the one thing that always leads humanity into trouble: attention. Becoming ere, by shining their lights and making their noise, they had offered it a feast. It had learned long ago, perhaps over millennia, that humans always return to what they do not understand. They had walked right into its trap. In that moment of terrible revelation, the lights failed. Not one by one, but all at once. Every headlamp, every flashlight, every emergency flare extinguished. They were plunged into a darkness so complete, so absolute, it felt like a physical substance. Panic, which had been simmering just below the surface, finally erupted, fracturing the group. Shouts and screams echoed in the black void. In Tachao's, in that total absence of light, something began to move. It moved with purpose. Not fast, not slow. It was certain, inevitable. The sounds were indescribable. A wet, dragging sound mixed with the crackle of stone. Days later, a lone figure stumbled out of the cave entrance. It was one of the researchers. His face a mask of gaunt horror, his body shaking uncontrollably. He was severely dehydrated, his clothes torn to shreds, but he was alive. He couldn't speak coherently at first, just babbling, his eyes fixed on the dark opening he had just escaped. When he finally managed to form a sentence, he kept repeating the same words over and over, his voice raw and broken, until it finally gave out completely. He said, "It didn't chase us. It waited for us to come closer." Shortly after his rescue, the ground around the cave entrance groaned and shifted. With a deafening roar, the fracture in the earth collapsed, sealing itself once more, burying its secrets deep within the planet. But we know the truth. Deep underground, something had been awakened from its long slumber. And it is patient. It knows that eventually, someone else will come looking. If this descent into darkness unsettled you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more explorations into the unknown. Leave a like if you felt the pressure of the depths closing in around you. And let us know in the comments, if you were on that team, would you have pushed deeper, or would you have turned back at the first sign of trouble? Thanks for watching.